So Putin is in trouble. He has trust issues, so he can't put competence in command. He has to put loyalty in command. And he's done this for so long that now he has incompetent, loyal people who are trying to push back against Ukraine. And but he can't trust the people that he put in charge. So he puts these overlapping people in charge, so everyone's in charge and no one's in charge. It's a real mess if you're Vladimir Putin. Okay, let's look at what's happened on day 8 of the Ukrainian incursion into Russia, day 902 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, 1,160 Russians off the battlefield, 5 tanks, 17 armored combat vehicles, 36 artillery, 59 vehicles, and fuel tanks. Overnight, Ukraine was hit with Shaheds and missiles, as generally happens. They did not shoot down either of the two ballistic missiles. They shot down 30 out of 38 Shahed drones. That's a normal night in Ukraine. Okay, Yekaterinburg, Russia was burning after Ukrainian strikes. So what's in Yekaterinburg that would have been interesting? Well, locals reported loud explosions. Yekaterinburg is home to the Russian military's central military district. So my guess is that those strikes hit somewhere either in or very close to that, trying to tag it. Okay, HIMARS destroys Russian radar. The video shows GLMRS missile strike on Russian P-18 early warning radar to support vehicles in the southern front. Remember, as we're talking about the southern front or Yekaterinburg, remember it's not all just about Kursk. Now, pretty much everything I say from this point forward is going to relate to Kursk, but the war is still raging. The eastern front is still hot. And we can't forget that just because something new has come to the fore. Putin must explain, this is in The Guardian, Putin must explain how his war allowed Russia to be invaded, and offering locals 90 pounds each won't do it. He's offered them about $100 to evacuate. Okay. There's this great paragraph in here. One paragraph I want to show you, because it summarizes what's actually happening. The Russian authorities are facing uncomfortable questions from desperate local residents in Kursk. How could the special military operation that was proceeding according to the plan, according to the Kremlin's repeated assurances, have gone so terribly wrong? It's because it wasn't going according to the plan, and it's not just a special military operation, it's a war. It's not this limited incursion that there's nothing to see here. Here's one map of what the Ukrainians have controlled over the last week or so. Here's another that shows a similar kind of map. And here's Andrew Perpetua's version of the map. Yeah, I mean, they have controlled about 1,000 or so square kilometers. Kursk offensive. Ukrainian forces are 24 kilometers to the east of the Kursk Nuclear Power Plant in Lvov. Now, I have no idea if they're trying to capture that plant or they want to capture that plant or whatever, but I mean, it's only a 35-mile drive on a Google map. Okay, again, 1,000 square kilometers. Russia has shown a lack of capacity to prevent Ukrainians' invasion. More interesting, Ukraine has taken hundreds upon hundreds of Russian soldiers prisoners of war who surrendered without putting up a fight. Local Russians are not resisting in any way. Most importantly, Russians have shown no will to stop this, and that's true. Now, it's true partly because of who is there, because they moved their Russia has moved their stronger, more experienced fighters down to Kharkiv not too long before this and had conscripts and mercenaries and Akhmat Kadyrovites there in that region. So they're not really prone to fight. Entire Russian units are not fighting. They just put their hands up and ask to be taken prisoner. For Putin, this humiliation may be even greater than last year's phenomenal show when Prigozhin's Wagner rebelled. And it might be. Okay, now I saw this yesterday and I thought, I'm not going to show this because I don't have evidence. Beware, false flag. Putin has put the FSB in charge of regaining Kursk. Be certain the FSB is not military and lacks the capacity to win back the oblast. The FSB will use false flags, most likely killing Russians and Russian civilians, and will blame it on Ukraine. And I said, I'm not going to show it. Where's, I just don't have evidence that that's the case. But then the ISW put this warning out. Senior Ukrainian officials provided updates about the ongoing Ukrainian incursion into Kursk Oblast and warned that Russian forces may stage war crimes in Kursk Oblast in order to discredit Ukraine and Western support for Ukraine. So if the ISW is putting it out, it's worth mentioning. This is like Jason J. Smart is credible, he's trustworthy, but I discounted that. But when the ISW puts it out, and then, okay, so there's more to this. Putin has appointed Alexei Dumin commander of the northern direction of the special military operation. Before that, he was the president of Tula, but Dumin is Putin's man, his former bodyguard. Why did Putin appoint him to the Kursk direction? It's very simple. Putin doesn't trust any of his generals, and that's where I started today. Dumin's appointment indicates serious problems in the Russian army, and this is understandable. The system is built in such a way that only thieves, corrupt officials, and sycophants rise to the top, because they made it that way by not being a meritocracy, but a loyalocracy, if I can create that term, loyalocracy. Putin built the system of governance so that the career ladder would be climbed by people who are controllable, low initiative, not dangerous to him. And so they put the FSB in charge of this operation, loyal, as opposed to generals who are kind of not the smartest. Okay, now, talking about that false flag thing. A Russian soldier is captured by Ukraine. He recorded himself looting an abandoned house in the Kursk region. It wasn't Ukrainian soldiers doing this. This was a Russian soldier looting a Russian house. The video was reportedly retrieved from his mobile phone. It potentially corroborates reports of widespread looting from their own civilians by the Russian military. I mean, like, wow. But Ukraine's going to get the blame for that. Okay, beyond immediate military objectives, this is Garry Kasparov. This bold Ukrainian incursion exposes the fragility of Russia's defenses and regime. It also exposes the cowardice and short-sightedness of the West's refusal to arm and enable Ukrainian victory. The escalation myth, the red lines, that's over, right? How many more red lines can Ukraine really cross? I mean, they remember the red lines about the tanks or the rockets or the F-16s, or yeah, now they've crossed the border into Russia. Okay. So the commander of Akhmat, that's the Chechen fighters, said that no Kadyrovites had surrendered and that all areas in the Kursk direction where the AFU was moving were under control. Apparently the commander's not really on social media, but they're taking prisoners left and right, and he didn't believe it. He was lying about it, and so Euromaidan Press posted this, the IDs of Kadyrov's Akhmat unit officers in Kursk Oblast. These are just the IDs of the officers. Ukraine's 225th Assault Brigade captioned the photo with the following comment. Recently, Deep State published news that the 225th Brigade successfully defeated an Akhmat unit. Here's the evidence. It's difficult to determine exactly which fighters were killed. Visual identification is difficult due to the condition of the bodies, and which retreated from the battlefield, but it's important to know their names. So here you are. There's the evidence. All right, White House advisor John Kirby calls Putin's West versus Russia claim, and I showed you that yesterday in Solyov, talking about how we're fighting all of NATO, right? A claim about Ukraine's incursion, horse hockey. Horse hockey is like an old-timey word for BS. If Putin doesn't like Ukraine's defense, then there's an easy solution. He can just get out of Ukraine and call it a day. Okay, fair enough. But Putin, according to the ISW, continues to portray himself as an effective and knowledgeable manager of the situation along the Ukrainian-Russian border and to shift all responsibility for ongoing challenges in responding to the Ukrainian incursion to the area of the Russian military and government officials. So It's not me that's incompetent. It's not me that's the problem. It's these terrible people that I hired. Okay, so let's look at this. The Kremlin's decision to publish footage showing Putin chastising senior Russian officials is likely a warning to other Russian officials to refrain from commenting about the Ukrainian incursion into Russia. Remember when you saw yesterday, I showed the video of the governor saying, hey, we lost X number of meters by, or X number of kilometers by X number of kilometers. And he said, I'll tell you, I'll have the military tell you what the actual number is. And it's like, don't talk. Don't even present this. Okay. Putin delegated overlap. This is really important, by the way. Putin delegated overlapping tasks to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Federal Security Service, FSB, and Rosvardia in the Ukrainian-Russian border area, further highlighting how the Russian force grouping in Kursk Oblast is struggling to establish the joint command. So you do that when you don't actually trust one person to be in charge or one institution to be in charge, and he just doesn't trust them, and it's pretty clear. Okay, Putin also says it makes no sense to talk to those who strike civilians. The task before the Ministry of Defense is to drive out the enemy of our territories, and together with the border service, ensure reliable coverage of the state borders. But then he said this, I mean, I couldn't imagine that he would actually say this. Just listen to this phrase. What kind of negotiations can we talk about with people who indiscriminately strike civilians, civilian infrastructure, and try to endanger nuclear power facilities? He asked. um, I mean, it's almost bizarre that he would say something that was so like, but this is what Russian state media does. They do this weird mirror imaging kind of thing. Okay. Classic dictator. This is Joni Eskola. He's a Finnish PhD student. Classic dictator, Putin is a paranoid control freak and insecure wannabe alpha male. When things go wrong, he consistently disappears, leaving others to take the blame. He's such a bad politician that he couldn't survive long in a democracy. And I thought, that's worth noting because he does all these things, and I wonder how he would work in a democratic republic. I don't think he would last nearly as long as he can when he can control the whole system. Okay, as a study in contrast, here's a Ukrainian member of parliament, Roman Kostenko. He posted a video earlier today explaining to his fellow parliament members that he will be unavailable for votes in the near future as he's crossing into Kursk Oblast, joining the Ukrainian offensive in Russia. That's what leadership looks like. Okay, in Kursk, a special operator holds up a pair of Russian flags. I thought this comment was brilliant. Russia's first loss of territory in 85 years seems to have finally put the special in Russia's special military operation. And this is just a meme, but it's funny. Ukrainian forces are retreating deeper into Kursk region. All right, my friends, that's all that I have for this daily brief. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.